Story 1, being a maker. I want a well-appointed workshop and a pottery area. If I won the lottery, I would have a triple garage with double height ceilings. I already have a trailerable boat that currently lives outside. The garage would have a loft spanning the space above and a barn hoist crane to bring equipment and materials up from the driveway below. There would be a woodworking area and a metalworking area. The machines would be computer numerical control wherever possible. Attached but separate, in the house next to the workshops, would be a textiles area for sewing and a fully equipped electronics workbench. I enjoy working across all these disciplines. I have intermediate skills in each and would love to let my creativity run wild. So far it is all a pipe dream, but I enjoy that almost as much. Story 2, own a home. Nothing extravagant. Get a nicer car. Not brand new, just newer than my current one. Save more than enough money to pay my utility bills. Depending on what I have left, travel modestly to a few places I have wanted to see as I get older. Story 3. Pranking poor areas by building or fixing schools, hospitals, and grocery stores. They wouldn't even see it coming. It would be so funny. Story 4. Commissioning unusual art projects. For example, an identical replica of the Great Pyramid of Giza that is 5 to 10% larger. I have a list. Story 5. I would buy land, build a modest home, and enjoy the silence. Story 6. A house in the Scottish Highlands near a loch, nice and remote. Story 7. Hire a massage therapist. Massages every goddamn day. Story 8. I feel there are negative assumptions in this post. I am removing it to avoid encouraging that behavior. Peace. Story 9. Large land ownership and conservation. Maybe some four-wheeling around my property. Story 10. Traveling in business class on long flights and working only 2 days per week. Story 11. The luxury of giving large sums of money to random people who need it. Story 12. I want to give my parents the experience of traveling the world, a more beautiful and comfortable home, and the best health insurance. Story 13. Regular house cleaners and a meal service or a chef. The dream. Story 14. I am a large man who enjoys bathing. I will finally have a bathtub I can fit in and truly enjoy. Story 15. Pay all of my family's bills, with some exceptions for bills that offer tax-deductible benefits, and invest the rest in income-producing assets for my family to live on. Financial freedom from debt, living paycheck to paycheck, and the fear of being unable to make ends meet is a luxury many cannot afford. Story 16. To be honest, I want to spend it with my family. Being with them is a luxury. Story 17. Owning a home has apparently become a luxury where I live. Story 18. I need someone to mow my lawn and someone to clean my bathrooms, preferably not the same person. Story 19. I'll buy a decent apartment. It won't be my forever home, but it will serve as a base to decide my next move. Then I'll buy my real luxury, a comfortable sofa. I have lived only in rental accommodation since I moved 21 years ago and have never been able to justify buying a home because I often have to move. I want to sit comfortably. Story 20. I will retire from the daily grind and move to the countryside where the air and water are pure. I will get a fast internet connection, build a large library, and create a cozy study. I will have pets and homeschool my son with excellent teachers. I will take him to natural wonders. Mountains, forests, oceans, and beaches. I will teach children and anyone who wants to learn for free. I will grow my own food. Story 21. I would stop going to work. First, I would do something really cool for my coworkers. Order all the equipment a local small business needs to upgrade its system and have it delivered, and hire a caregiver to help care for my 92-year-old grandmother. Sounds good to me. Story 22. If I had health care, I could do anything else I wanted, like retire, without spending 30% of my income on it. Story 23. I am going to buy a nice bed right away, several pillows, and high-quality bed sheets and blankets. Story 24. I love to work with my hands. I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, so I've tried many hobbies, but woodworking has stuck with me. I've always dreamed of creating a third space that people of all backgrounds could come to learn or use tools they otherwise could not afford or have space for. Maybe one for woodworking, one for pottery, one for fiber arts, and more. Story 25. Remote mountain cabin with my own stocked fishing pond. After that, the usual hookers and blow. Story 26. I would consider stem cell therapy for my back. At 28, having had 2 lower back hernia surgeries, I would like to see if it can restore some of the cushioning between my vertebrae. Stem cell therapy is very expensive and is not yet available in the Netherlands, so I would have to travel for it. The costs are massive for a therapy that is not guaranteed to work. It seems only wealthy people can afford it. Story 27. Aside from the obvious, like paying off the mortgage and so on, I would hire a personal dietitian who could provide a weekly meal plan and shopping list with recipes that are nutritious and taste good. I am more than happy to cook myself, but deciding what to eat is such a pain. Story 28. I would buy a house in the country with some land around it and host family parties. I would give money to my family to ease their lives. Story 29. Extreme adventures. Antarctica, wingsuit flying, and deep-sea exploration. I want to see more of the world. I would also launch a service to help homeless veterans gain employment. Story 30. Philanthropy. Being able to devote all your free time to something, while having the resources to make it actually happen, would be special. Story 31. An investment to make sure I stay wealthy, probably followed by acquiring a high-performance home network storage system. Yes, I would like to have storage in the petabyte range, thank you. Story 32. A Leica camera has always been my first purchase after winning the lottery. Story 33. I would start following several of the bands and artists I love on tour, like BMFS and Sturgill. Story 34. A small piece of land outside of town and a warehouse in town to tinker and drink coffee. Story 35. House cleaner. Full-time. I love to cook, but cleaning is a pain. Story 36. Owning a detached home with a good-sized front and back garden is a luxury, so I would dive immediately into home ownership. Story 37. I kind of want to revive old wealthy traditions like building roads or libraries to show other wealthy people that my wealth is indeed greater. I would also support a few eccentric artists as their patron, telling them they are taken care of and can now let their creativity fly. Story 38. Top-of-the-line healthcare. I would go to the best doctors and be fully checked and treated for anything. I would get a nutritionist and a personal trainer. I am going to live forever if I get rich, laughing out loud. Story 39. Travel without planning around prices. Eat healthy food without checking the cost. Story 40. I am not asking for much. I would buy food to fill my empty refrigerator. Story 41. The idea of maintaining a large house, whether myself or by hiring others to help, keeps me from wanting one. I live where safety is not a concern compared with most places. I do not care about the top speed of a car when I drive well below the capabilities of any car. The internet and modern media make entertainment so prevalent that it is a wonder anyone gets anything done. I like shoes, but clothing appeals to me mainly for function, comfort, and avoiding awkward exposure. I would not mind a few high-end pieces if the design interested me, but I could buy them now as I did with the few gold chains I own. The only thing I could see myself doing that I do not do now is traveling between continents. Even then, I do not enjoy the stress of planning and preparation. Seeing plants and animals, and talking to people whose differences bring insight, makes travel enjoyable for me. Certain cultural, historical, and religious sites would be interesting to visit. In short, not much, just more travel. I am kind of basic. Story 42. Define rich. I want to be rich enough to own a Gulfstream G650 extended range. Story 43. Move somewhere where I will never have to deal with cold weather or snow. A beachfront house with a private beach and a 10-foot fence surrounding the property. Or a penthouse in a tall building with big floor-to-ceiling windows. I would not go near the windows, but it would have the best views of the ocean. Story 44. Dog cloning from DNA. Early retirement. A barn dominium in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming. Story 45, the best chairs, sofas, and beds that money can buy. I want to be in the clouds. Story 46, investing in several small islands to help restore infrastructure and access to trade. I'm helping renew a barter network on the Big Island, Hawaii, and see the hustle of empowered citizens there. The simplest mechanization boosts productivity, morale, and hope. Story 47, fashion. I want to dress more stylishly, but I am not willing to spend my limited money on what is essentially vanity. I am not talking about designer clothes. I just want to see something I like and be able to buy it without having to justify it. Story 48, go-karting. My son is really into it, but it is so expensive and I feel like I am letting him down. If I had the money, I would build a track. Story 49, I would buy a house with a nice garden so my son can play outside. Story 50, maintaining healthy natural teeth or dental prosthetics for my family and friends. Story 51, I would buy a couple of sets of really high thread count Egyptian cotton bed sheets and replace my car. Story 52, I was upgraded to first class on a flight from London to Atlanta. It has ruined steerage for me. Story 53, I am buying whatever I want at the grocery store. Red meat, grapes, and out-of-season berries. Yes, please. Oh my goodness, I might even shop at Whole Foods instead of Safeway. Story 54, brand new socks and underwear for every day of the week, fresh out of the package. That is a wish I have had forever. The feeling of new socks is so nice. Story 55, I am fixing all the broken parts of my house so I have a safe, warm place to live. Story 56, a house where everything works, with no broken appliances, no electrical outlets that do not function, and no boarded-up windows that I cannot afford to replace. Story 57, anonymity, a house in the mountains with high walls and many dogs. Zen. Story 58, geez, my first luxury would be getting out from under all these bills. Then a nice car, nothing too ostentatious. Story 59, having a large house and garden suitable for multiple animals such as cats, pigs, goats, and chickens. I also want a well-equipped kitchen with great supplies so I can cook like a chef for my family and friends. Story 60, I would probably immediately buy all the fancy tools I am too poor to afford. Story 61, I never thought a home would be considered a luxury, but here we are. Story 62, brand new socks every day. I know it's wasteful, but this is daydreaming, right? Story 63, replace my old laptop with a new one and write all the books in my head. Hire a cleaner and a gardener to spread the wealth a little. And spend my days walking on the beach and writing. Story 64, I am donating to a hospital to establish a children's cancer ward that will bear my name. I am creating school scholarships through my foundation. Story 65, I have someone wash and style my hair at least once a week. I get a massage every week. I have a cleaner. Story 66, a cabin in the woods to escape the madness of daily life in the city. Story 67, I'm going to hire someone who can handle all meal planning, cooking, and cleaning. I'm also going to hire a full-time driver because I hate driving. I will get a weekly massage. Story 68, I am going to say the two chicks at the same time. Story 69, no alarm clock. Personal time is worth more than all the gold in the world or any fine art. Debt is slavery. Story 70, I would buy a huge garage and start filling it with classic exotic cars. I would sleep on a cot in the corner, eat food from a can, wear rags, and drive those classic cars all day long. Story 71, I know I would end up with a stupid number of watches. I really like different watches. I would love a Longines Spirit Diver. Story 72, I live in a waterfront home on a river that leads to the ocean. Story 73, eat at expensive restaurants or travel the world to try each country's national dish in local eateries. Story 74, the very best physical therapy for all my aches and pains. Story 75, going from not hot to hot. I hate that I care about this. Story 76, a retreat condominium near water, ideally with a burger bar on site. I would like to relax, listen to music, watch children play, have a bite to eat with a beer, and take a short walk back to my condominium. Story 77. If I won the lottery, I would replace my polyester suits with a collection of wool suits in various colors for different occasions and levels of formality, from formal to smart casual. I would hire a fashion advisor and a personal shopper, not just for formal wear but for contemporary everyday fashion. Story 78. Load a yacht with staff and weed and sail the world. I want to be on the edge of the world, waking up out there and falling asleep under those skies. I want to spend some time alone. I would bring my wife, but we would still be alone. Story 79. I am finally buying the building I have been eyeing and will start living as a landlord. Story 80. Wellness. I just spent a large amount of money trying to improve my health and longevity. Story 81. Sit down with a professional cartographer and have them make maps for my homebrew Dungeons and Dragons world. Story 82. I'd love to own a cottage-style house in a wooded area on the outskirts of town, so I can drive in when I need supplies, but have the peaceful sanctuary of a home in nature for living. This has been my dream since childhood. If I were very wealthy, I would want extensive land, staff to run an animal sanctuary, and investments to provide ongoing income. Story 83. I love the early retirement idea. A close second would be a personal chef whose job is to surprise me with a new menu every day, and a personal trainer for when I start to gain weight. Story 84. Craft cheese slices. No more giant block of Velveeta cheese for me. Story 85. True relaxation without the black cloud of my obligations silently ruining it. Story 86. Concierge wellness includes medical care, a gym, a personal trainer, massages and spa services, and membership at an indoor tennis facility. Story 87. I would buy a huge plot of land in a temperate climate and build the largest dog refuge so the dogs can run free. It would have full-time veterinarians and climate-controlled barns, and I would live my best life. Story 88. I honestly fantasize about buying derelict buildings in my neighborhood, renovating them, and renting them to lower-income families and businesses for almost nothing. A massage and a really high-end facial would be nice too. Story 89. Solar panels. Because I am fed up with my local power company. One bill is $500. The next is over $2,000 with no obvious change in usage patterns. Story 90. Philanthropy. A nice house that is not too big, and a fucking incredible sound system for movies and records. Story 91. I'm going to drive to places I've never been, order food at restaurants I've never tried, and go to bars I've never visited. Story 92. A full-time health and wellness team for myself, my immediate family and close friends, a family practitioner and concierge doctor, a nutritionist, a personal trainer, and various specialist doctors on retainer. If I am going to have money, I would like to live long enough to enjoy it. Otherwise, the usual. Buy a lot of land to conserve and build tasteful structures on it. Build a large makerspace to tinker in. Do some angel investing in worthy small businesses. Help those in need. Take up fly fishing and get a nice boat for sport fishing at sea. All good things. Story 93. Move and reinvent yourself. Never let anyone know about the money, because all your friends and family will have a $10,000 to $25,000 problem that only you can solve. Story 94. Travel. Moving to a different country. I would never be in the same place for long. Story 95. Buying groceries without looking at the ad to see what is on sale. Story 96. A personal driver, a chef, and a cleaner would free me up to spend more time with the kids and actually have a social life. Story 97. Services such as a chef, a cleaner, or a driver. Essentially outsourcing more household chores. Story 98. Influencing global politics through donations from third parties to world leaders. Story 99. Obviously, I am turning every inch of my house into gold. That is what you do when you are rich, right? Story 100. Having time is the biggest luxury. I would spend it with my family, creating lasting memories. Story 101. I would have freshly cleaned sheets every night, with someone to make the bed each morning and turn it down each evening. A fresh warm towel after every shower and comfortable clean blankets on each couch. I would have linens everywhere and someone to care for them. Story 102, hard to say. Maybe I would try being one of those people who enjoys yelling, "Do you know who I am?" at cashiers or other service providers who do not meet my expectations, or at police officers who arrive when a cashier calls about a wealthy person who knocked over the Cheerios display in aisle 6 and is frightening customers. Story 103. I am going to buy expensive cheese, other toppings, and bread. I usually buy average or inexpensive bread, ham, and cheese, so it would be nice to try something more exquisite. Story 104. I will probably either fix my house or buy a new one. I love my house. I bought it intending to live there for the rest of my life, but it needs some repairs and the yard is very small. At first I liked the small yard because I hate yard work and mowing, so the size was a selling point. Then I took up gardening. What started as a couple of potted plants on my deck 4 years ago has grown into 2 raised beds with trellises, and I plan to add a few more along the edges. I would love a bigger yard where I could do more gardening. Story 105. I would start a not-for-profit home rehabilitation company. I would buy rundown homes, repair them to code, and resell them at break even with a right of first refusal buyback clause. The goal would be to rebuild entire communities over time and place long-term owners in them. Story 106. I need new glasses. I have been needing for a while. I will see what the dentist says and will probably have throat surgery. Story 107. Upgrade my house. I like where I live, but I would make some renovations and add luxuries to make my home a place I never want to leave. Story 108. Take taxis whenever they are more convenient than public transport, and overtip the drivers unless they are rude. Story 109. I am interested in some form of higher learning. I do not know what I want to learn, but I will take my time figuring it out. Story 110. Healthcare. I would get a full body scan. I am currently waiting to find out whether I have cancer. Story 111. Invest in my education by taking courses, pursuing degrees, and acquiring the skills I want. Story 112. I am giving away so many things that I feel I have to sell them for the loss to feel worthwhile. Story 113. Warhammer 40,000 miniatures. Who needs drugs when you have plastic crack? Story 114. Diving from a diving board into a huge pile of gold coins, like Scrooge McDuck. Story 115. I would pay my son's nursery fees for the next 3 years, so his education was a priority. Story 116. Buy quality in every product that separates me from the ground. Story 117. Honestly, if I were that rich, I would absolutely finance and have sex with several women who are wildly out of my league. Story 118. Healthcare. Then a modest property with running water and electricity. All I need. Story 119. Doing what I want with my time instead of being owned. I'd probably take up a new hobby of going to retail stores hoping to find someone treating a lowly worker poorly, so I can say all the things the worker wants to say but can't. A volunteer opportunity, I suppose. Story 120. Pay off the house. Then set up investments so I can live moderately on dividends and interest. Story 121. Routine checkups. Imagine going to a doctor or dentist when nothing's wrong. Story 122. I am buying insulin and continuous glucose monitors so I will never have to ration them or run out again. Story 123. The only answer is falconry. If you are into it, you are a certified baller. Story 124. I would hire plumbers, electricians, and handymen to come in and fix everything. Story 125. I will quit my job. I will schedule appointments with a podiatrist, an eye doctor, and a dentist. I will stay home, clean, and take care of neglected tasks that cause me mental anguish. I will spend more time with my family. I do not need fancy things. I need my health and my family. Story 126. I have a small cafe. It's a lot of work, but I love the customers and the conversations. I would hire people to do the other work so I can chat. I think we still need a purpose. Oh, and read books. So many books to read. Story 127. I want to pay off my debts and not worry about how much everything costs as I raise my baby. Story 128. Finally living a debt-free life and putting it to work so I can continue to live off the winnings. I'll sprinkle in some vacations and keep life moving like I never won. Story 129. Food. Never again will I find myself asking the question, is this worth the price? Story 130. I eat the finest food possible at every meal, except when I want Taco Bell. Story 131. Hiring people to help me with everyday tasks like housework, financial matters, and rides to the store. This would eliminate much of my worry about these things. Story 132. The quiet luxury of owing no one a goddamn thing, financially or otherwise. Story 133. I just want to sleep without waking up with the constant anxiety of how I will pay my bills this month. Story 134. The luxury of being comfortable. I would still work for health insurance. I live in the United States if being able to pay the bills, buy something on a whim, and remain comfortable is an absolute luxury I would cherish. Story 135. I am debt-free. I do not mind working. I would just like to keep more of my earnings. Story 136. Retire early and move to the nearest city with better public transportation. Story 137. Being able to put the heating on and have a warm house in winter without worrying about the bills would be amazing. Story 138. Honestly, just sleeping in and catching up on lost sleep over a good chunk of my bullshit life. Story 139. I would not have to worry about paying basic bills or utilities. My health would likely improve because stress causes problems in the body. Story 140. I am going to have every possible medical test and procedure to improve my health. Story 141. A maid, a groundskeeper, and a butler. Knowing me, I would keep working because I like what I do, but I do not want to do anything when I get home. Story 142. I would retire and get a horse, a dog, a goat, a donkey, and some chickens. I already have the cats. Basically, an animal farm. Story 143. Buy a house, buy a car, and customize it, and buy luxury items. Then take 1 to 2 years off work. After that, do volunteer work for the rest of my life. This assumes wealth is unlimited and requires no management. Story 144. I would buy my 2 elderly neighbors' homes. I would turn one into a garage for my collection of cars and the other into a gym and pool house for the large pool that I would put in the backyard. Story 145. My own swimming pool, a catio, and a beautiful house with a garden where I can grow fruits and vegetables. Story 146. A brand new pair of socks every day. Order a pallet from Costco. Story 147. A full night's sleep and a nice car as a track toy, probably a Miata. I do not need to be the fastest person on track days. I just want to have fun and not be financially crippled if I crash. Story 148. I like my neighborhood except for the speeders who fly by my house, so I'd probably buy their homes and restore the area to wilderness for the deer and coyotes. Story 149. I will give all the people in my life the peace of mind they need. The car engine light you have not been able to fix, the cavity you have ignored for the past 4 months, and the down payment on your dream wedding venue that you set aside. I will take care of all of them. Money means nothing to me if my people are still hurting. If I have good company, I am rich enough. Story 150. I would pay for a thorough medical checkup and have a good mechanic inspect my car. I am an anxious person, so I worry even though both are probably fine. Peace of mind is a luxury in itself. Otherwise, I would mostly keep doing what I am doing. I would donate generously to libraries, to food banks, and to people I know and can find who are in need rather than spending on small things. A large amount of money can harm an individual, but when spread across a community, it can benefit many people. Story 151. Having the luxury of excellent healthcare, I really need to start working on myself. Story 152. Scrooge McDuck's vault of gold coins. You meant dive literally, right? Story 153. I think early retirement and business class flights and luxury vacations go without saying. That is the life if you become very wealthy. I would want a luxury home in Hawaii. I love it there, but it is very expensive. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.